It's a maritime mystery that most, if not all, have heard of. It's a puzzle that baffles even the hardened researchers, and for centuries it has devoured numerous ships and planes that dare to enter its setting. Of course, I'm talking of the Bermuda Triangle. Over the years, theories have been debunked, questions have been answered, and riddles have been solved. But what most don't realise is that things have been missed. And in this video, we will browse over all of it and come up with answers of our own. Come with me and scout the real reasons behind this scary, mysterious stretch of ocean that has taken so many lives. They say it all started way back in 1492 in the times of Italian explorer Christopher Columbus. Whilst navigating the Atlantic on board his ship the Santa Maria, along with his fleet, they stumbled across an algae called sargassum. Sargassum, or sargossa, is a large seaweed that is plentiful and dangerous to ships around an area of the Atlantic, especially the area now known as the Bermuda Triangle. Columbus wrote that it hampered the ships and they were stuck for 3 days. He also mentioned that it was so dangerous that it nearly capsized all of the fleet. It would continuously get tangled in the ship's rudders and weigh the ships down. Although the name Bermuda Triangle had not been coined, it was the first report of the hazards this section of the ocean could create. Eventually, they freed themselves and continued on their way, and the rest is history, I think. In the year 1800, a frigate ship named USS Insurgent, which America captured from the French during the Quasi-War, was used to patrol the West Indies in the Atlantic. During one of its patrols, it disappeared, never to be seen again. It was the first recorded incident that happened in the Bermuda Triangle. Bear in mind that this part of the Atlantic still hadn't been named or associated with any kind of mysterious triangle. All 340 crew members were lost, and officials put it down to a freak storm. The very same year, the USS Pickering, a schooner, set sail from Delaware en route to the West Indies. This ship was also mysteriously never seen again, losing all 90 of its crew. This time the US Admiralty did ask questions. To lose 2 high-ranked ships in such a small space of time was concerning to them. But the questions could not be answered, and her disappearance was also put down to a storm. Yes, the area was notorious for stormy weather, but ships in the past coped easily. 14 years later, in 1814, a highly respected and successful warship of the American Navy set sail on its way to the Caribbean. Navy officials are still on high alert due to the loss of the Insurgent and the Pickering, but once again, the USS Wasp and its 140-strong crew were never seen again. Things were by now getting creepy. Now these, you may think, are just shipwrecks, but the fact of the matter is, no wreckage or bodies were ever found. Vanished in an instant. This part of the Atlantic was now becoming legendary within the maritime industry, and even the toughest of sailors and fishermen were now scared to travel in these waters. What do you mean by these waters? Well, the triangle is somewhere from 500,000 square miles and up to 1.5 million square miles of stormy, unpredictable dark seas. It's located between the Florida coast, across to Puerto Rico, and up to the island of Bermuda. I'm not ignoring other shipping disasters that happened in the area back then, which there were, but let's fast forward a little to 1918. A huge container ship called the USS Cyclops, carrying a large quantity of magnesium ore, set sail from Brazil to deliver its cargo to Baltimore. The ship was over 500 foot long and was massive for its time. It too passed through the triangle. A ship this size could quite easily cope with the types of storms offered up by this part of the Atlantic. Its owners and crew were confident. They waited, but it never reached Baltimore, and the USS Cyclops and all of its 306 crew were recorded missing. A large search and rescue fleet was sent out to find the ship, its crew, and its expensive cargo. Nothing was found. They just disappeared off the face of the earth. Something strange was happening. Something wasn't right. This was quickly becoming a mystery and a complex part of the ocean, and the American high-ranking admiralty's eyebrows were now beginning to twitch uncontrollably, not to mention their dollars. In the early 1940s, the Second World War was at its height, and ships all around the world were being lost, sunk, and destroyed. Two more ships, the USS Proteus and her sister ship, the USS Nereus, disappeared in the Sargasso Sea, part of the Triangle, in 1941. Nothing nor no one was ever found. That's the difference, see? In every other part of the world, ships were being sunk, but folk knew where, when, how, and why. These two sister ships were never found, and nor were their crew. The mystery was only deepening, and it would get even more mysterious when not only ships, but aircraft were now disappearing. High-up people, especially seaborne traders and naval maritimers, were perplexed, and rumours began to spread quickly. The BSAA Star Tiger, an early airliner carrying wealthy passengers back to the US from a Christmas vacation in the Caribbean, disappeared from the skies in 1948. A sturdy Douglas DST plane carrying 29 holidaymakers and 3 crew was flying at low altitude. Back then, the cabins were not pressurised and would often fly low to compensate for this. It was ideal weather, and the pilot radioed through to the control tower. Everything was as planned, and the pilot, Robert Lindquist, even mentioned that the passengers were joyous and singing Christmas carols. But just 50 miles away from the Florida coast, the plane vanished. Once again, no wreckage, no survivors, no foresight or discernment, and no mayday call for help. It all of a sudden lost contact and disappeared. Unbelievably, this would happen again to the same airline and the same type of plane just 1 year later. This time 13 passengers and 7 crew were lost. BSAA would later go out of business, and what seemed no fault of their own. A few years before these planes would go missing in 1945, an experienced fighter pilot and 13 trainees would suffer a similar fate. Leaving from Fort Lauderdale Air Base, pilot Charles Carroll Taylor would lead a team of 5 TBF Avenger torpedo bombers out to an area known as Hens and Chickens Shoal, where low-level bombing practice was frequently carried out. It was the final training session for these trainees before graduation. Flight instructor Taylor had amassed over 2,500 flight hours and had led the team on 4 previous missions during the training schedule. Lauderdale's air traffic control received radio contact from Taylor halfway into the session. It was disturbing. He advised them that both his compasses were out and acting in a strange way. A short time after this, panic pursued. He radioed once again, stating that they were lost and, despite his experience, could not find the Florida coast. By now, all 5 planes were getting low on fuel and needed a solution, and quick. The last contact, not to the towers but to the trainees, was even more disturbing. Taylor sounded like their fate was already mapped. He said over the airways, "All planes close up tight unless we spot landfall. When the first plane drops below 10 gallons of fuel, we all go down together." All 5 planes and crew were never seen again, vanished. A staggering yet feasible explanation for their disappearance has been suggested quite recently, and I'll go into that a little later in the video. Within a couple of hours of lost contact, 2 Mariner flying boats were dispatched from Patrick Air Force Base, then called Banana River Air Station. They were sent directly to the point of last contact out in the Atlantic Ocean. Nothing, I mean nothing, was found. All 5 planes were gone, never to be seen again. That was hard enough to take, but one of the rescue planes never returned also. This too was never recovered and just vanished off the face of the earth. Folk at the airbase were darting around perplexed, looking for answers. A massive search and rescue followed. 248 planes and 18 Navy ships scouted the seas in search of the 6 planes. A bunch of civilian ships and boats joined the operation. Despite the huge effort, nothing was ever found, and eventually, sadly, all 21 men were declared dead and a military ceremony was organised and carried out. In 1950, the tramp steamer Sandra, carrying 300 tons of DDT insecticide, left Savannah, Georgia, en route to Venezuela. All 180 feet of her and her crew passed hesitantly through the triangle, constantly keeping in contact with land. All went dead. They never came out the other side, gone once again, without a trace. Obviously by now, this part of the Atlantic was getting notoriety. This triggered an article in the then popular paranormal magazine, Fate. The author, George X. Sands, wrote a piece titled Sea Mystery at Our Back Door. He didn't call it the Bermuda Triangle just yet, but he did refer to the area as the Watery Triangle. Folk, readers, were now starting to hear of these tales, and this just heightened the mystery. Because of the recent UFO sightings of the time around America, including the famous Roswell incident, folks started to wonder if something very abnormal, something otherworldly was going on, and it gained a nickname of the Devil's Triangle. A few years later, in 1964, another publication, the Argosy magazine, which had a huge science fiction following, printed an article from Vincent Gaddis. This was the first time the title Bermuda Triangle was coined for the area, and it stuck. It's unmistakable that something was going on in this area of the Atlantic Ocean, and let's now break down all the theories. The most obvious theory, and most recognised by the authorities, is human error. All the ship's captains and all the aircraft pilots made mistakes. They definitely have a point, but they miss the most blatant flaw to this debate. It isn't the fact that these ships, these planes, had come to dreadful ends. It's the fact that none were ever found. Surely, if it was just a common sea accident or a common sky disaster, wreckage would be found, at least some wreckage. But it never was, and never is. That also puts pay to the suggestion that all the accidents, in inverted commas, are just accidents, and there are no more ratio of accidents in the Bermuda Triangle than there is in any other waters. There are more accidents in parts of the Pacific Ocean and the Indian Ocean than there are in the Bermuda Triangle. Yes, there probably are, but the accidents in other waters have wreckage. It's rare for wreckage to be found in the Bermuda Triangle. Parts of the Bermuda Triangle are very deep. This could account for no wreckage. In parts of the Bermuda Triangle, its depths go down to 19,000 feet. That's deep. And also around Puerto Rico, it's as deep as nearly 28,000 feet. You're now talking unexplored levels. So yes, the ships and the planes could be sitting in a very, very deep part of the ocean. But for each accident, not to have any wreckage or bodies whatsoever is strange to say the least, don't you think? Another theory is that of the Earth's magnetic field. The compasses go haywire, experienced skippers and pilots get lost. Is some kind of magnetic force field causing them to lose their bearings? I mean, there is such thing as magnetic north and true north, but I don't really want to go too far into that at the moment. I may go way off base if I do. But once again, that too doesn't account for no wreckage. I found the next theory to be very creditable: methane gases. At the bottom of the oceans lie volcanoes. Some are active, some are not, but most give off methane gas, sometimes, if active enough, in large amounts. If the amount is large enough, it could, and I emphasise could, sink a large ship. If the bubbles, which are made up of methane and oxygen, if the bubbles are large enough, and there are plenty of them, because of the oxygen especially, it could affect buoyancy, thus dragging the ship down to the depths. What about the planes, Beau? If the eruption of methane gases was great enough, the explosion of gases could penetrate the water's surface and enter the atmosphere. If methane gas was to hit a plane's engine, it would ignite and cause either a fire or an explosion. If this happened and the plane crashed into the sea, the methane bubbles could also drag the plane to the depths. Definitely the best theory yet, unless of course I've got the whole theory wrong. I'm no chemist, I'm just a humble YouTuber. How about the Kraken theory? The Kraken, in marine folklore and Navy horror, can quite easily capsize a ship and take it down to its lair. The giant octopus and giant squid does exist in our waters, and who knows what else, even deeper, could be down there. I know, highly unlikely, but I wouldn't want to be the first sailor to find this out. Some say the deepest oceans, of which the Bermuda Triangle fits, hide portholes to vortexes that lead to the lost city of Atlantis. Once again, probably not the reason, but let's never rule out anything, huh? Recently, the UFO phenomena in the US is probably at its biggest height of awareness for years. Folk are saying that another race, other beings, are under our seas. And when we've only explored 5% of our oceans, that leaves another 95% unexplored. Crazy. Recent witness accounts of spaceships emerging from our waters have been recorded. The Baltic Sea anomaly has done the rounds for years now, but nothing has ever come of it. So I'm going to rule aliens out for a change, but never completely. While we're talking about strange things, there are a couple of weird happenings that do relate to the Bermuda Triangle. In 1989, in the Okefenokee Swamp, a 438,000 acre swampland straddling the Georgia and Florida state line, a hiker spotted a life raft. On the side of this small rescue raft was the writing FT-28. This was a raft from Flight 19, and it was classed as official. A declassified file released years later reported that all 5 planes from Flight 19 must have had at least another hour's worth of fuel before its last contact. Also, reports in the same file mention another aircraft that was in the skies at the same time as Flight 19 spotted 5 unidentified aircraft flying across the Florida border. The times of the sightings were also after the alleged last contact. Could these 5 planes have lost radio contact with the traffic tower and carried on for another hour and crash landed in the Okefenokee swamplands? Were they not lost to the Bermuda Triangle at all? 438,000 acres is a very large area, and planes etc. could be lost in there for a long time, if not forever. I can reveal something very spooky. As recent as 2009, an air traffic controller, whilst working a quiet night shift in the Florida flight tower, stated that for a short 7 seconds he received a voice message through his headset from an unknown, untracked aircraft. The message was, "This is FT-28 Flight 19. We are still waiting." The message could not be traced and nothing else come through at all. Weird, right? Was this the actual FT-28, aka Flight 19? Spooky. Other theories have risen in recent years, like blaming the sun or the moon or the length of hot dogs. Okay, the third is made up, but what I'm trying to say is theories are just theories. But I think I've cracked it. I think it's a few things added together. I think the methane theory, coupled with human error and combined with a heavy storm, causes all these incidents. Okay, ships first. The methane releases causing massive buoyancy problems. The methane fog cloaks the ships, throwing the compasses, disrupting communication, and renders crew members unconscious. It then, because of the large amounts of oxygen in the bubbles, drags the vessels down to the depths. Like I said, some of the Bermuda Triangle's depths are scary, never explored by man. The ship, its crew, its cargo, and its name resting on the ocean floor, never to be seen again. And the planes, after the methane gas has penetrated the sea's surface, it too renders the pilots and the crew unconscious, causing the engine to stall, or worse, ignite. The plane falls from the sky, enters the sea, and like the ships, are dragged down to the depths. What do you reckon? Feasible? Or do you think it's the Earth's magnetic field, magnetic north and true north and all that? Could it really be a vortex to the Atlantis? Aliens from beneath our seas? The Kraken with its long, large tentacles? Human error? Or nothing at all? Or hype? Or something totally different? You be the judge. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I find it amazing that only 5% of our oceans have ever been explored, yet look above and you'll find celebrities in rockets. Very strange. Anyway, if you like a video with a human voice instead of AI, please help me out and click that like button. It sets off the YouTube algorithms, sending the video to others. And please consider subscribing and clicking the little bell icon so you don't miss out on future content. Anyhow, I'm going to go and listen to a bit of Barry Manilow now. Yeah, right. Do I look like a Barry Manilow fan? Shut it. Take care. See you in the next video. Bye for now.